Nintendo has made its fortune with series like Mario and The Legend of Zelda, but it was not always that way. While they have changed video gaming with the Wii and Game Boy, their business origins covered everything from playing cards to, well, love hotels. Before we begin, we publish new content all week long, so be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. Here on Context TV, we will be delving into the question of, how exactly did Nintendo become a video game powerhouse? Cards. Nintendo was founded in 1889 by Fusajiro Yamauchi, but back then they were making playing cards. Their earliest venture was Hanafuda cards, which featured images of flowers and were used for several different games. Nintendo eventually produced Western playing cards and hosted bridge tournaments called the Nintendo Cup. Nintendo's cheap Tengu card line has also fueled rumors that they embraced the gambling community and its demimonde. They even produced a risque line of Western cards featuring pinup models at one point. Fusajiro's grandson Hiroshi took over the company going into the 1950s and helped license cards with Disney characters on them. The family-friendly images helped change Japanese perception of Western playing cards and produced a huge spike in sales. Though the card market faced hardships in the 1960s, Nintendo still sells cards today, including Hanafuda sets with Nintendo mascots. It was their boost in profits from working with Disney, however, that fueled their expansion outside of playing cards. Surprising taxi success. With this extra capital, Hiroshi Yamauchi broadened Nintendo's horizons as a business through several different ideas. One of these ventures was operating a taxi service in Japan named Daya. Though it seemed like a strange move for a card company, Daya was allegedly a successful business for some time. The financial strain of driver-labor union battles proved too much, however, and Yamauchi eventually sold off his taxi business. Nintendo finds love, hotels. After flirting with adult entertainment through nude cards and gambling, Nintendo established their own love hotel in the 1960s. Rather than renting for a full night, love hotels rent rooms to amorous couples by the hour. While they can be used simply for privacy, love hotels have a reputation for adultery and illicit activity as well. Nintendo ultimately shut this all down in favor of more wholesome entertainment opportunities. Trying a bit of everything. Hiroshi Yamauchi's push for new business at Nintendo resulted in dozens of unique products over the years. One was the remote-controlled Chiritori vacuum, which had sticker sets to transform it into a character. Nintendo even honored their vacuum in a WarioWare minigame. Nintendo also made their own Lego-like NMB blocks in 1968, which could be built into Japanese TV characters. After quality complaints and lawsuits from Lego, Nintendo discontinued the brand in the 1970s. Nintendo developed a rocking crib that could transform into a rocking chair as well. Outside of toys, Nintendo made a fully functional photocopier in 1971 with a compact design. Though Nintendo also reportedly explored instant rice, network TV, and ballpoint pens, they never attained real long-term success outside of games. Busy thinking about toys. But Nintendo focused on making toys in the 1960s. An early product was a baseball board game which used buttons and dials to recreate pitching and hitting. Gunpei Yokoi's Ultra Hand toy was a huge success in 1966, and it quickly became Nintendo's first toy to pass 1 million units sold. The Ultra Hand's legacy has extended to WarioWare minigames and its own downloadable cooking game too. Yokoi brought baseball back to Nintendo with the Ultra Machine, a miniature pitching device. Another success came from Yokoi's Love Tester, which used heartbeats to decide how compatible pairs were. Love Tester also got a North American release and has been referenced in the 3DS version of The Legend of Zelda: Majora's Mask. Light-sensitive electronics also opened up a whole new world of toys for Nintendo, which became known as Kosenju. These light gun toys would allow players to aim at figurines like cowboys and then knock them over using sensors. One clever design also involved a plastic bottle which would separate when you fired at it. This led to the Laser Clay shooting system in 1973, which was a virtual shooting range for arcades that Nintendo designed using reflective surfaces and projectors. It should come as no surprise either that Nintendo named their home version of Laser Clay Duck Hunt. Rather than a home console, however, this Duck Hunt used a projector to put tiny birds on your wall. The console version of Duck Hunt wouldn't come out until 1984. Early video games. Nintendo had been circling around video games for a while, and officially joined the industry by distributing Magnavox Odysseys across Japan in 1974. This same year saw some of their first arcade releases, like Wild Gunman. Rather than an 8-bit figure, however, several of these light gun machines used film reels of actual actors. Nintendo considers their first official video game, however, to be 1975's EVR Race, which matched taped segments to live gameplay. Nintendo called Genyo Takeda their first video game designer as a result of EVR Race, while Shigeru Miyamoto would come on board shortly after. Though Miyamoto would become famous for iconic Nintendo series like Mario and Star Fox, he actually started by designing cases for a home console. This was 1977's Color TV game, a home console with a Pong-like tennis game, racing, block-breaking games, and later, Othello. Among its other cameos, Color TV Games Tennis even got its own assist trophy in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. Though Nintendo also released Othello arcade machines and a space shooter called Radar Scope, neither game managed to gain huge followings. Donkey Kong and Game & Watch. After all these primitive games, the Nintendo we all know and love took shape in the 1980s with two key releases. Gunpei Yokoi continued his innovative streak at Nintendo with 1980's Game & Watch, Nintendo's first handheld video game. Each game was its own separate LCD screen device, with only two control buttons at first. Mr. Game & Watch would return later in the Super Smash Bros. Series with weapons from all his different games. Yokoi would also later be known at Nintendo for designing the Game Boy and starting the Metroid franchise. 1981, however, was Nintendo's big turning point, when Donkey Kong came out and took arcades by storm. Donkey Kong was a massive success for both Nintendo and arcade owners, while companies like Atari and Coleco asked for their own versions as well. A later Donkey Kong Game & Watch release was also responsible for the innovation of Nintendo's D-pad. The fame of Donkey Kong eventually turned both Jumpman and the titular Kong into Nintendo mascots. Jumpman was later renamed after Nintendo's office landlord, whose first name was, of course, Mario. The console revolution. After Nintendo's fandom in the arcade grew, they finally brought the arcade home with the Famicom in 1983. The Famicom would later release stateside as the Nintendo Entertainment System, and launched with games like Excitebike, Ice Climber, Duck Hunt, and more. Nintendo would continue their arcade reign with competitive versus cabinets and games like Punch-Out! And with the release of Super Mario Bros. For their console, Nintendo cemented their place as a video game superpower. Talk about an unusual start! From their humble beginnings as a card company in the 1800s, who would have guessed that Nintendo would develop video games? From ventures into taxiing, love hotels, and toys, the Big N tried anything and everything to grow their business. It was their return to games as a whole, though, that finally brought Nintendo long-term success as one of the most beloved video game companies in the world. Check out these other great clips from Context TV, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.